yeah, this session really gives an opportunity to open up, share some of your experiences, to ask direct questions and make direct comments to us. This is a great opportunity for a lot of interactivity. And as I was praying just at the beginning, before we start this session, I was receiving this reminder from Jesus that there's a part in the Course where he says, really your first responsibility is to increase motivation in the learner. And what does that mean? It's like, well, if you can tap into that deep desire and prayer we've been talking about in our Song of Prayer weekend, if you can just begin to tap in to that prayer, depth of that energy of that prayer, then it's like you become activated. You will be drawn toward the light. You will be drawn toward the samadhi. And I remember in that passage where he says, actually, that's really your first responsibility, and then that's your only responsibility, because we're so accustomed to this linear way of thinking and this linear way of problem solving. We have been ingrained to go for solving problems like, okay, what do I do first? What do I need? What's the first step? What's the second step? What's the third step? What's the fourth step? You know, it's like that's the way we go about solving problems in this world. And for most of us, it seems a little strange to think, to be asked, well, what's your motivation? And Frances and I were just talking about a new Netflix series that we were just turned on to, and about the whole series is about getting in touch with your real depth of passion, what really motivates you, and letting that light your mind up, and how it's so easy to get into roles in this world, and which are filled with people pleasing and trying to please others, or having some kind of set role that you feel like was given to you by your parents or by your society that you have to somehow fulfill to be a fully functioning citizen of the world or something, and how there's something that just wants to light up inside you where there's so much natural passion, and it so much takes you towards the expansion of your mind and towards the light. And even in different stories of the life of Jesus, you know, I feel like a lot of what we have in the Bible is those last 3 public years of his ministry. But I think we have to remember that Jesus seemed to come to this world not as, some of the Christians say, as God incarnate, not as an enlightened being who just appears in the manger and suddenly there's angels singing and all kinds of things, supernatural things happening. He is a good role model because he had to learn to tap into the Holy Spirit and to listen and follow and take those intuitively guided, really, steps that come moment by moment with passion. And he just did a lot of them over his years. He wasn't so much into the distractions of the world. He couldn't be bothered, even as a young man of maybe 12 years old, you know, staying and having these excited conversations with the rabbis when his family thought that he was part of the caravan, you know, going back to Nazareth, and actually he wasn't. He was still hanging around with these excited conversations with the rabbis because it was his passion. At 12 years old, he was questioning the traditions. He was questioning the roles. He wasn't even put off. And then famously, when they sent somebody, they came back to get him, and he was kind of scolded at 12 years old, like, why weren't you with your mother and your father in the caravan? And he famously said, don't you know I have to be about my father's business? Imagine yourself at 12 years old telling your parents but you have to be about your Father's business. That just shows where his mind was. He was really tapping into that passion, and he was into those passionate discussions. It was almost like centuries before that, there were the ancient Greeks who used to sit around in the pools all day long and have these passionate discussions about what is the nature of reality, what is the point, what is the purpose for all of this. The Greeks were asking those questions. It's almost like Jesus at 12 years old was already lit up with his passion for finding the truth, for finding what was real beneath this crazy, wacky world of duality. So I think that's a good place to start today with everybody.
Yeah, and I think I have read some of the questions that you submitted in, and I see some questions around how to unify the desire so that I don't desire anything else, because we know that prayer is, in another word, is desire of the heart. But just as David and I were talking, I was just thinking, the fact that we dare to tap into what truly is most important to us in every single opportunity that is presented to us is, in a way, of saying what is my desire. And for us, and for all of you to tune in right now, it's actually a way of saying, I desire this, and I desire to join the minds of the Holy Spirit, and I desire to join the people who are also sharing this passion of hearing the Holy Spirit. This itself is the desire manifested, so to speak. So what we were talking about, this Netflix series was interesting because it was recommended by the director and the screenwriter couple that David mentioned yesterday morning, who wanted to collaborate with us to produce a series about happiness. And she said, why don't you check this series, because I think it's really well done. And we checked it. It was about a bunch of successful sports people that they're in this world set up to win. It's all about winning. Their whole career, their whole life was set to compete and to win. And what happens when they actually lose, and lose really bad? And it was the introduction of, I thought, well, okay, maybe it is about their mentality when they lose. But actually, I just watched one episode. It wasn't about that. It was actually, you see so clearly, they started to, when this shell and this roll started crumbling and fall apart, they realized they never wanted it in the first place. It's never their passion, but they play a role so fully in such a committed way to play the game of this world. And it's not really offering anything. And then when things started to fall apart and they give themselves permission finally to admit this is not where my heart is at, and they step into this strength that is considered as weakness by the world because you don't have a role, a persona that is glorified and recognized. But this internal strength started to show up to be able to say, this is what I cherish and this is what I value. And what if I hold on to that? And then, boom, a whole nother world shows up in front of him and is guiding. That's what I always feel. Once we tapped into this desire and this certainty, it is actually a strength. It's a certain quiet strength. And you don't keep asking, is this or is that? You know it. And you hold it in your mind. Then all of a sudden the how yield to you. You don't play this weak character to go out to seek the how anymore, to go towards what is bringing me happiness. No, once you say this is valuable to me, the whole world, the pathway, the seeming step, the rung of the ladder yield to you. And then everything that shows up becomes an opportunity to say, yes, this is still what I value. So I just celebrate the fact that we are here together talking about this, because it is truly valuable to us to let the spirit be the only thing that saturates our mind, and be the only thing that is spoken through the body, to be extended through the body. And I feel like if we all just be so honest to ourselves and recognize that is our desire, then this is how we purify it. This is how we can truly be strong and succeed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. And really, we're really seeing that this is what it means to live a life without compromise. There's a part pretty late in the text of A Course in Miracles where Jesus says, salvation is no compromise of any kind. And so you might think, what's he mean by that? Salvation is no compromise of any kind. It's, to give it to you really straight, it's like if you have a split mind, if you seem to have a split mind, and part of it is light and part of it is dark, and consciousness is just receiving the mechanism of the mind, and it's just receiving messages from the light and from the dark all the time. It's just, that's what consciousness is just the receiving mechanism. And so if you're receiving messages from light and dark, and these two thought systems, light and dark, don't have a meeting point. In fact, if they ever met, then the dark would disappear. Because if you bring darkness to light, then there's only light. And so that's the whole point of salvation, is to not compromise, to not be willing to just go with two irreconcilable thought systems, to start to see this is impossible to hold on to this split. And how you do that is through this guidance that comes, and through this passion. You may not get words, and you may not have clear instructions, but you can start to tap into, I want the sense of wholeness, and I want the sense of joy and glee and happiness. And so for me, the reason why we're having these beautiful retreats like we're doing is because, very simply, when the Course came, I didn't see it as a book. I mean, I used it kind of like an oracle, but then the whole point was to tap into the guidance. And actually, once I really tapped into the guidance, then wow, it's like going down a water slide. You don't hang on, don't put your fingernails into the plastic, just pull your arms in, pull your hands in, and whoosh, go down the water slide and splash in that water. The water's warm, it's very inviting. And so, my gosh, that's why we tell our parables over the years of everything. And we've been through this. Some people say we live really radical lives, but it's not like we actually let go of anything real. Careers aren't really real. The things that we believe we needed, the things that we believe we needed to strive for, we found out they weren't real. That Samadhi movie is just this stillness. Somebody was writing in saying, David, in your next expression sessions, I don't have expression sessions. Sorry, you're talking about something that's years ago, not even close. We're living in a state of true joy that comes from very focused purpose, that's very, very devoted, and we've received guidance. And yet, if you know us at heart, we're so simple, we're so clueless. We do wake up in the morning, we do watch the birds, we listen to the birds chirping. Now I've got people sending me birds chirping videos. I was saying to Swami yesterday, look at it was a Swami from India who is sending me three or four clips from his backyard, and all it is beautiful nature scenes and these loud birds. and I'm delighted with that, People do send me all kinds of stuff about COVID-19 and all this other stuff, but if they knew how happy and simple I was and how happy and simple my state of mind is, they probably wouldn't be sending me some of this stuff, political stuff or this and this, because we've followed the guidance. We've let go of the concepts and the beliefs and the pursuits. I mean, it's stunning for us that we're even sitting in a studio today with lights here and cameras and everything, because we got up this morning and it's Mexico. I got up about 5:30 and I was like, there's no electricity. So I was messaging a few people at 5-something in the morning saying, well, we've got no electricity here. I could see some lights on in the distance and everything. So we didn't even, Frances and I weren't sure whether we would be able to be here with you today because we had no electricity. For us, it's no big deal. It's like everything is just working together for the good, and we are beyond detached from this world. People talk about things in the news. It's like the state of mind of contentment. That is the news of the day. That is the news of the moment. That is the news for me of my entire life. And so when I was kind of poking fun at this new Science and Non-Duality conference, I saw the title was Calling on Wisdom at a Time of Crisis. Why is it a time of crisis? Why would we project the crisis of a split mind onto time and call the times of crisis? It's just like that's just how the ego works. It takes something which it invented, which is linear time, which is basically essentially neutral to the Holy Spirit, and then it calls it times of crisis. Why are these times of crisis? I don't get it. I don't get it. If you start to live in the moment and you actually do follow the Spirit, and you actually are just living your joyful, gleeful, full of happiness and passion and life, you're living, that is what life is. It's a state of mind. Then you also realize that state of mind is just so natural, but it has nothing to do with circumstances and specifics of this world. That was so beautiful. That's what the Samadhi movie was showing. We all just were watching that, and like Eric was saying, everyone was, whoa, just was yielding into that experience, because that's actually what's very, very natural. So when we talk about, a lot of the questions that come in are very much about specifics, but I do see that what Frances is talking about, I've seen that too, where like Lisbeth, you were saying you heard Emily singing and then it activated you. You were like, yes, I want to sing in joy. I want to sing in presence. I want to sing in happiness. That was a witness. Emily's singing and just being in so fully in presence was a reminder to you, and then you did share, there's this other thing that goes on in my mind that sees singing more kind of like on the timeline in terms of expectations and production and quality and all the typical things that the ego applies to everything. Analysis, where's the joy in analysis? And so I love it how transparent, because your witness and what Emily was sharing, you're showing the way of, that's the answer. You're on it. You're already on the answer. You know what the answer is. You can feel it. You can feel it wanting to come out and wanting to shine. And I think that's the value for all of us of what we're doing here all together on this Song of Prayer, because we want that song to come out. We really, really want that song to come out. We want to sing it from our heart. We want to sing it because it's who we are, not because of trying to solve a problem that really is non-existent. Some of you have heard me say that we can't know the problem that the plan was meant to solve. You see how just that line is so different from all of our problem-solving means we've done before, where the first step in most problem solving of the world is you have to define the problem. And Jesus is telling us, in lesson 135, you can't do that. You cannot know the problem that the plan was meant to solve. It's thinking you already know the problem is coming from the past. And Jesus is teaching us that the past doesn't exist. So if your definitions of what you think your problems are as a human being, or what you're dealing with in this seeming lifetime, somehow you've got to come up with the equation, like Einstein had. His equation, E equals mc squared, was an equation for relativity. That's the equation for relativity. And who you are is an absolute. It's divine light. So even Einstein wrote a letter to his daughter, and he said, listen, you might have to bury this, or you're not going to be able to share this with any news outlet, with anybody, because the world's not ready to hear it. But he said, my most famous equation was E equals mc squared, and that was the equation of relativity. And he said, actually, this whole world, everything is all about love. And love is the force that scientists are too afraid to find. Love is the thing that as scientists we have been scared about. Even when they would do some of their early experiments and quantum experiments, Einstein called what he found, the connectedness that he discovered through his experiments, he called it spooky action at a distance. Spooky. Einstein called it spooky. There it was. He was afraid. But he did write a letter to his daughter saying, well, it's actually all about love. And as scientists, we're afraid of that. So he was actually talking about how there it is. That's the fear of God's love. That's the fear of eternity. What's to be frightened about eternity? Well, it seems, as you've brought up in your questions, it seems to imply that the self that you believe you are will be gone. The ego would say annihilated. That's what the ego's stance is, that God is got only one purpose. The light has only one purpose, and that's to annihilate personalities, annihilate individualities. Some of you might have even had that feel when you were watching the Samadhi movie, like, woo, this presence doesn't seem to have any connection with separation. It doesn't have any connection with personality or individuality. And that's why there's such huge reaction to the Course. When most people pick up the Course, they do have reactions. They will write to me, I don't agree with this. Somebody wrote to me about a week and a half ago, and they said, you seem genuinely happy. I've watched your videos, you actually seem genuinely happy, but I do not agree with what you're teaching. And then the whole email went into it, one thing after the next, I cannot believe that this is so, I cannot believe this, the whole email was the resistance and the reaction against it. And yet, I am here with you sharing that I made contact with that inner voice of Jesus back in the late 1980s, and I just have followed it with faith and trust. And it hasn't brought me anything that the world would say as successful. I get a kick out of when I go onto Google, and some people have said, do you ever type in your name to Google? And it's like, yeah, just to see what comes up. And okay, I like to see the different searches that come up with the name David Hoffmeister. But the one that really cracks me up is David Hoffmeister net worth. If you knew my net worth in terms of what the world calls physical possessions and money and everything, you would laugh that people are actually searching for that. I don't have a net worth in terms of the way the world kind of measures those things, it's really minuscule. But and you'll find there are a lot of celebrities and things, and I guess somehow that term net worth is associated with celebrity. So I'm a celebrity with no net worth in terms of the world. I would not do well on those lists, you know. There's the top 100,000, 10,000. Where's David on the list? He's not even close. He's not even close to the list. Because my worth is spirit, my worth is happiness, my worth is joy. Those things that, like you were talking about in that Netflix show, the title of the series is Losers. And it's actually kind of funny that there's this show on Netflix, a series called Losers, and then the whole thing is about authenticity, about finding your passion, finding what's truly worthwhile, which, believe me, I can tell you, is not achieving or accomplishing anything in the world. If they tried to put down my achievements and accomplishments in the world, that would be just as disappointing as a list as the net worth. I kind of would. I might fit on a list of losers. It's like David is the most celebrated loser in the history of the world. Because if they actually investigated it, they would go, wow, they're not meeting any of the criteria. But that's the fun of it, because for me, tuning into guidance, listening to guidance, following guidance, and being happy was worthy. That's where the worthiness was for me. That is my net worth. Is this moment. If you really want to know my net worth, you really have to go into the Holy Instant, because you won't find it unless you join me in the Holy Instant. That's the only place you'll discover it. It's very. This world is backwards and upside down, truly.
Yeah, even this morning. Because we weren't sure whether we will have electricity by the time this session started. So there were a lot of text messages, there's no power is out in Mexico, no power. And I was in my room, and JP came to my room and said, do you want to pray to have the power come back? I said, I don't really want to change. I don't really have it in me to pray to have change what's supposed to be. And then he said, well, let's just join in prayer anyways. So we did join in prayer. And then afterwards he said he went so deep, he discovered his true prayer that was at the core. And power came back. And I said, what was it? And he said, thy will be done. And that was, the thing is, and then he moved on to something else very quickly, but I tasted that power of that short phrase. When the phrase itself, when they're just words, thy will be done, means nothing. But when that phrase comes from you in such an authentic way, regardless of what seems to be the surface scenario that leads you to that prayer, when you sit there and you tap deeper and deeper into, I want to find the authentic prayer, and you get to that prayer, thy will be done. The power of the whole universe lies in that. The power of your happiness, of your strength, of all the answers just lies in that union, I would say, not even the words, but the union, that you know that this is your will, thy will be done. And that is what we're here saying as a song of prayer. The song of prayer is a song because it is a union, and it's a realization that it's already done. And then really this Maya, when we watched that deep movie yesterday, this spinning and swirling of the images, they are really just like fragmentation of the mirrors reflecting back. And yet, at the same time, we can still you unite to say that let them be reflecting the true will then. That's how we still seem to operate in this world. We're not really pushing them all away. We're not really going to a hermitage in the cave and saying, I hate all the projections and I don't want to have anything to do with them. And that is not, Jesus actually is saying that it is through the relationships. And that's why, it seems like to be the way that leans onto our lives. Come to live with people. Is that really scary? To live with people? You chose your whole life to stay away from people, to set up your own world so that you don't have to face all this negativity that is buried. So no, come to live with people. It's safe. It's okay. And through that, you see that they actually reflect your innocence instead of the other way around. So that is, another way of being, another way of living in this world. Mm-hmm. As Jesus wants us to taste.
Yeah. I'm looking at these flowers and it reminded me of a song from, I think it was a song from the 70s, Linda Ronstadt, but the song was titled Love is a Rose, and then the chorus of the song is, love is a rose, but you better not pick it. Only grows when it's on the vine, handful of thorns, and you know that you've missed it. Lose your love when you say the word mine. The whole problem is the mine part, is even when you see little children and they just are learning words and learning to talk, and then they the first time they look up in the parent's eyes and they say that word, mine, and the parent is like, oh God, what have I done to raise my child, that my child speaks the word mine. But that's why for me it wasn't just about, I'm just going to read this Course in Miracles book and see where it takes me and everything. I was interested in the mystics and the saints. I like to read about the lives of the saints all over the world. How did they live? How did they deal with things emotionally? How did they deal with things practically? Jesus would take me on road trips. Instead of me sitting in my room going, okay, what's the formula? What should I do? Do I need to find a guru? Do I need to do this? Do I need to do this? I would just relax, settle back, and then I would get these guidances and instructions, really for things that I was not planning to do. I had no plan to take a road trip across the United States. I didn't even know how I would even do such a thing. I didn't have savings, and I didn't have what I considered the things you need for a road trip. Take a road trip. Then I'd be out there, and then I would be shown on the road trip how to listen, how to follow, how practical guidance was. That's really what I thought it was a road trip for a few days or weeks. The first trip was like 5.5 weeks, and then another long one. Then I'm on the road for the better part of 5 years, learning to trust, learning to listen, learning to follow. That was letting go of possession. I admired the apostles. I admired the Essenes. I admired the Franciscans. I admired Mother Teresa and the work she was doing. I actually just didn't want to think of them as living decades or centuries before I did and being far removed from me. I thought, cool, divine providence, let's discover what that is through guidance. Cool, can I live a life of non-possession? Wow, that seems like a high goal in this world. Not a lot of people that are role models for that. Who cares? The guidance will show me. And so what we end up living is we end up living this guided life that is so extraordinary from the world's standards, because things just show up when you need them. Of course they do. That's the law of mind. Giving and receiving are the same. Of course they do. All that I give is given to myself. Of course it is. of course it is. My attitude is teaching all the time. Regardless of the words that I'm saying, or even my actions, it's my attitude that's the teacher. If I'm joyful, if I'm happy, if I'm gleeful, that is teaching the whole universe that I am as God created me. We were talking on the way over, Frances, you were sharing that you watched the Samadhi movie and you were just like smiling during the Samadhi movie because you were like, the whole world is just a reflection of my mind. You know, you were seeing that mind is the source. It wasn't like you were Frances in a vast cosmos of time and space, but it's like whoosh. It's like mind is the source. Mind is the activating agent of spirit, but it's also where causation is, because we haven't left the mind of God. We were unable to leave the mind of God. Hallelujah, that we could never leave the mind of God. That's an experience, though. You were sharing, that's like an experience. It's not somebody telling you the words, "Thy will be done," and then you going, "Yeah, that's a good phrase, I'm going to memorize that." It's an actual, wow, thy will be done, because really there is no will apart from God's will. That's impossible.
And there is no victimhood in that prayer. Thy will be done. You do not complain in that state of mind. You do not see anything lacking in that state of mind. You see that your will and God's will are one. I don't know, there are more words to describe it.
That's it. That's it. And that's what Greg was talking about too at the beginning on Friday night, where it's like that's where you see it. It's a song, and you see that you are that song. And if you say to yourself, "Wow, that sounds good," but you're dealing with the practicalities of time and space, what seem to be the practicalities of needs or wants or issues, then it's really like bring those to the altar. You have a powerful altar in your mind, and if you bring those issues, those seeming problems that you've tried to define and so forth, but if you bring them to the altar and you leave them to the altar, I will guarantee you they will disappear. Mm-hmm. In fact, lately I've heard people, the group from India was saying that right after they finished studying the Song of Prayer, the day afterwards, I think, that's when the Song of Prayer video appeared for this weekend. And for those of you who have read it or haven't read it, this is from Jesus, and it came as a response, because Helen Schuckman, Ken Wapnick was basically saying to Helen, you know, I see how Jesus is working with you, and I still think there's more to this topic of prayer. I would love to hear more from Jesus about prayer. I know it's impressive how he's helping you get your green pantyhose and your Borgana coat and these different things, get the eyelash that's stuck in your eyeball, you get that onto your cheek. He was really impressed with that, but he said there must be much more. And so Ken basically said, very practically, because he knew of Helen's connection with Jesus, why don't you ask Jesus about prayer? And then Jesus gave the Song of Prayer. Out of the whole booklet, the Song of Prayer, I've not read it for many, many years, but I can tell you the highlight. Out of the whole book, I was amazed, and I thought, wow, I was just doing ooh and wow and highlighting and everything when I first went through it. But there was one line in the whole booklet that actually jumped out at me, and it just lit me up, because it takes you right into Thy will be done. And the line that really got me, this was the line that really sprung me beyond the booklet, was the secret of true prayer is to forget the things you think you need. I'll say it one more time. This is in the booklet. The secret of true prayer is to forget the things you think you need. That's all I needed to tip me over the edge. Oh, I was already wanting to go beyond the confines of this world, but when Jesus comes right out and says the secret of true prayer is to forget the things you think you need. It was almost like Jesus was giving me permission, go ahead, do it. You know, you had 10 years of university, you're so practical, David. You think you're practical, studying all these different things, learning all these different problem-solving techniques, trying to master the world. You've been trying to manifest, you've been trying to master this world for so many years. Here, I've got one for you. The secret of true prayer is to forget the things you think you need. And then when you give them over, you put them on the altar, and you actually take all those things that you think you need and you give them to Jesus, and you say, here, I'm going to give them all to you. He's like, yeah, that's what I've been waiting for. I want you to neither be careful, I want you to cast your cares upon me, for I love you so. I want you to take all those things that you think are your problems and your issues, and I want you to cast them on me. You want to really do something with your problems? Give them to the Holy Spirit. Just give them to the Holy Spirit and just try that and see if that works. So, the secret of true prayer is to forget the things you think you need. Okay, if you say so, I'm going to give them to you and see what works. And amazingly, that's where you are rained down on in grace by casting your cares upon Him, for He careth for you. You are rained down. You have given up your problems. Everything that you would seem to think is even helpful in the plan of awakening, it comes. When I used to sit there many, many years ago, I was not really drawn to the internet, to tell you the truth. I was in university for 10 years, and I ended up going undergrad and grad school and getting sent to these computer classes. I was not attracted to computers. I was not at all attracted to computers. And so I would go to the class and everything, but I wasn't like, ooh, goody, 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 I get to take a computer class. I wasn't drawn to computers at all. And then when the internet started to come in, I was not drawn to the internet. And then when email started to come in, even though it was like a communication device, I had been traveling around the United States for a long time, and so I would do all these gatherings, and people would say, did you record the gatherings? I said, no. Was I supposed to? And then years later people would say, did you at least get emails from the people that you were gathering with? I said, no. Was I supposed to? So basically I had so much fun traveling around doing these gatherings in people's living rooms and barbecues, backyards, parks, basements. I had such a blast with everybody because I wasn't thinking about recording anything. I wasn't thinking about email list. Later on, when I would travel around, I remember the first time I went to Australia, and I was talking to this friend Raj and everything, and he said, David, I'm going to set up a series of gatherings for you, Way of the Heart gatherings down here in Australia, and I'll go with you to all these events and everything, and I'll handle, I'll handle all the money and the books and everything and the products. And I said, what products? He said, the products. I said, what products? And he said, surely you have products. And I was kind of like Chauncey Gardner. I said, I don't know what the products are. And he said, if you're going to travel and speak, I'll help promote you, but you have to have products. I thought, products. So he actually spent some time there with Kirsten and Jason and I, because he said, like, this thing, don't you talk about movies? Don't you have? I said, yeah, we got a little booklet about our movies and everything. He said, there you go, you need a product. I know somebody that can design a cover for it, we can produce it, and we can turn this Movie Watcher's Guide to Enlightenment into a product. But it was so foreign to my mind, the idea of products. And he would also say, it helps, we'll just put this out on your mailing list. Mailing list? Oh, surely you've collected email addresses. I said, no, why? Surely how are you going to exist without these things? It was so foreign, it was so alien. All I was there for the holy encounter, When you meet anyone, remember it's a holy encounter. As you see him, you will see yourself. As you treat him, you will treat yourself. As you think of him, you will think of yourself. Never forget this, for in him you will find yourself or lose yourself. That's all I needed. I'm here only to be truly helpful. I'm here to represent him who sent me. I'm into the holy encounters. I was not interested in emails. I was not interested in products. I was not interested in organization. And I realized too that when I traveled even to other countries, South America or whatever, I'd have a little brief call usually with somebody, and then Maureen and I did this, actually was that yesterday? We had a brief little call, we joined with somebody from Colombia, from Bogota, and then all of a sudden an entire event gets set up from a brief little call, and that's the way it was always going for me. So when I would go down to Cali, Colombia, or to different places, the course facilitator would have contacted, they had email lists, they had all these things that would contact, and then there'd be 100 and some people in some big auditorium. I just thought, wow, this is quantum. Like, I just show up and everybody shows up. And sometimes they'd even bring in simultaneous translators and booths and do all these different things. But to me, my job is just to be happy. And that's it. And I think that's what we're trying to get at, that's how simple this really is. If God's will for you is perfect happiness, and all you want to do is join, say, thy will be done, thy will is for perfect happiness. So if you're happy, then the whole universe is happy, because there is no world apart from your mind. What kind of God would set up a world where you could be happy and other people could be sad? Or you could be healed and whole and other people could be broken? God would never have anything to do with such a fractured, crazy, that's an egoic projection, that there's people suffering outside of your mind. If you want to maintain that belief, you can do that, but you're not going to be happy. I think Mary too, Mary Straub was writing in, and I think Mary, you were saying you're still having trouble with this social justice thing, like you're having nighttime dreams where it's starting to, you're getting stirred up with your nighttime dreams, and you're still having trouble really grasping this idea of that there's no social justice, that Jesus has a whole section in the Course called the Justice of Heaven, where he's saying, yeah, if you're looking for justice, heaven is your state of mind. If you're looking for fairness, go to God. God is fair. Heaven is fair. If you're looking for happiness, go to God. Heaven is happiness. But you're not going to find fairness in fragmented perception. You're not going to find happiness in fragmented perception. You won't find continuity in fragmented perception. You won't find any true sense of peace or blessing or intimacy in fragmented perception. I had a friend, Celeste, wrote to me from France, and she was basically saying, how do we deal with protest? Like, can I be in my right mind and be aligned with God and be protesting? It seems like if I'm protesting, I must be going against something. I must believe there's some external thing that's not right, or I have to be protesting against it. And she said, like, how does this work? And I wrote back, yeah, true empathy means you stay with what's real and what's true, and you stay with the real thoughts in your mind. Period. That's it. What does true empathy have to do with social justice? Nothing. Are healing and atonement related? They're identical. They're not even related, they're identical. But what is atonement or what is healing but to be in your right mind? You know, that's all Jesus is asking of us. He's just saying, please put everything that you perceive on the altar and give it to me. Bring your misperceptions to the altar of your mind, like that bright light that's right behind your head. It's like, that's like the altar of earth right there, your green screen, your background. And that beautiful light is so precious, and he's just like saying, bring everything of you misperceive about earth, bring that to the light, and it will disappear. Now, there are some people that tell me, you know, David, what you're talking about, you sound like you do not have all your marbles. You are not playing with a full deck. You are not speaking in practicalities. I said, what do you mean? This is the most practical, this is the only practical thing that there is true empathy. Admittedly, Jesus says that's one of the harder concepts to grasp, because when you start to grasp that one, well, the whole course becomes really simple. Then you don't have resistance. You're like, oh yeah. But the whole point of believing that there's an external world outside of your mind, that is the issue. There was the woman, what was her name, Shah, from India, that was saying that you got into all the course and my teachings and everything because of one word, quantum. You said, ooh, that word quantum just lit my mind up when I heard quantum, and then I saw your book, Quantum Forgiveness. Well, what is quantum except the experience that everything is unified? That's what quantum field means, everything is unified. What did the early quantum physicists, the pioneers back about seven and a half decades, anybody who's not into quantum should know that quantum is not brand new. Quantum's been around for like over 7 decades. So you can't go, oh yeah, that's that newfangled science. No, it's actually not newfangled. It's been around for over 7 decades, and what the quantum discoverers discovered was there was no world apart from consciousness. There was no world apart from the perceiver. That the perceived and the perceiver were one. That's what they discovered. Well, there goes Newtonian science out the window. It's gone in that discovery. That's what science was always set up to do, was to know, to discover. Well, with that discovery right there, that just brought an end to the belief in an external world, an empirical external world. Now, does that merge with the great perennial wisdom? Yes, it does. What do you think our whole Samadhi movie was about? Showing that there's no inner and there's no outer. Even Ken was noticing, he was telling me on the way in the parking lot, he was saying, did you hear it? In the movie yesterday it said there really aren't enlightened people. And I've been talking about that for decades, and it's like, it was in there, it was in the movie. There's no enlightened people. What does that do to gurus? Well, that just shoots all your concepts of gurus, out of the window there. Because why? Because there's no world apart from what you think. That who you are is the meaning of the world. There's even a workbook lesson in A Course in Miracles where Jesus says, you are the goal the world is searching for. I'll run that back again. You don't hear that typically in religions. You are the goal the world is searching for. with the phrase, the kingdom of heaven is within you. The word within, Jesus tells us, is actually unnecessary. The kingdom of heaven is you. That's in the Course. The kingdom of heaven is you. That is a way of saving you time from struggling about that word within. How many times have you went over that phrase from the Bible, the kingdom of heaven is within you, and you said to Jesus, what does that mean? What does within mean? It can't be within my body. What does within mean? Jesus is taking you away from that question because he's eliminating the word. He's saying the kingdom of heaven is you. You are the essence of everything. And then there's one point where Jesus says in the workbook, many great people have come to remind you that the Savior of the world is you. Oh, it's like he's coming from every angle. The kingdom of heaven is you. You are the goal the world is searching for. And then, in case you missed it, many great people have come to remind the world that the Savior is you. That's reflecting that workbook lesson, salvation comes from me. But he's talking about the mind, he's not talking about personality cells. It wouldn't make no sense if you said the salvation of the world depends on me and you put your personality self-name in there, because that's not it. But if you say the salvation of the world depends on Christ, you see how that works? That's you. That's the Christ. That's the you. That is the me. The salvation of the world depends on Christ. And maybe we have a friend who was writing in, help me see the inner golden Buddha. You could put the word Buddha in there for Heart Edge, Gil. You could say the salvation of the world depends on Buddha. Put the word Buddha in if that is what resonates as the divine allness. You would put that word in there. But you see, it's not the personality, it's not the mask that is the Savior of the world. It's the reality of the Spirit that you are, that is the Savior of the world. Of course, that's the Samadhi. That's the Samadhi. We were walking up the steps to come into this room, and Frances was saying, yeah, it's like you can't, this just is beyond the words, you know. I just don't even know how long I'll be saying these words. And you saw when Svava sang her song that she stopped in the middle of the song, and then she said sorry, and then she started again. I got to hear the rest of the story, like when we left. She was singing one line in that song, which was the line encouraging really to let it all go, and she did. In the middle of the song, she let go of singing the song. And then something came right back and said sorry, and then continued on the song. But she's told me afterwards, she said, as we were leaving, she said, you know, I don't feel bad about that song. And I said, yeah. And she said, I don't even know if I'm going to be able to sing many more of those songs at all either, because in the middle of that song, I so much went into the line that the song was coming through me that I couldn't continue at that moment. There was nothing to continue. It was totally, talk about complete, it was complete right there. And she had disidentified so completely with the singing of a song, right in the middle of a song, that was like a witness of the line I was telling you. The secret of true prayer is to forget the things you think you need. Even the need to finish a song was gone in one instant. There's another line that Jesus says where he says, a teacher of God can heal the world without a sound. Without a sound. So if you start to associate this teacher of God idea with words, and certainly, the shy David who didn't want to speak at all, the shy David who didn't have a girlfriend till he was 27 years old, the shy, quiet, timid David who certainly would not have said, oh, Jesus, use me, let speak through me all over the world. That's the last thing that David would have actually said. And now I'm giving you this line, the teacher of God can heal the world without a sound. That's where we're pointed towards samadhi. That's where you start to realize you don't need a teacher of God self-concept. All you need is the willingness to be still and know. All you need is the desire of your heart for that song of prayer. And everything else is involuntary from that. There's no doer with it. If you really tune in and you tune into the love you have for God, that's it. You've done your part. And everything that would seem to come from that will seem very expansive and seem very mystical. I'm seeing Susan Jameson, you wrote in your beautiful encounter where you, with your symbol of Bernadette that you received, maybe you could just share just how profound that was for you, because it was, I think, Easter, you, with the coronavirus, you were going to a place that's usually packed full on Easter, but this Easter, which is very recent, you actually showed up there and went through a very mystical kind of experience, and it was totally unexpected, and it was just the prayer of your heart. You were just in the song of prayer.
Thank you. I love you all so much. And I was listening to you Sunday morning, Easter morning, and it was so happy and so much fun. I wrote to you I went to the Shrine of Divine Mercy in Stockbridge, and it's one of my favorite places in the world. I've actually seen you all there, David, Frances. Anyone who wants to come someday, maybe we'll visit it together. I was actually there with Greg and Jenny. It's a very beautiful place, and Kristen. So I just felt the strongest prompt after listening to you to go there on Easter. And it was a very, very beautiful day here. And like you said, normally there would be 10,000 people at least there on Easter Sunday. So I'm walking, and there are a few people there, very devoted people who were picking up flowers from the staircase of this gorgeous sanctuary. And I thought, well, I could walk around the grounds there, but I actually felt to go to the grotto. There's a replica of St. Bernadette's grotto, which I feel very drawn to. So I'm just walking. At the time, I actually received a text from my friend Holly, who told me about that grotto originally. And it was like wild. Holly's writing to me. She was living in Ohio. She just came back. And I said, oh, I'm going to make a little film. So I filmed that I was walking to the grotto, which is where she told me to go 25 years ago. So I go, and there's no one there. I'm sitting on one of the benches, and I'm just in a prayer. It's just a beautiful place in nature. It's outside. There's a little statue of Bernadette and a statue of Mary. My understanding is that the visions that she saw were not really of Mary, they were of Jesus. So I'm sitting there and I'm thinking of the beautiful sessions with you in the morning and just feeling so happy and so grateful. that I start writing you a little message about the little crystal egg I found that morning. That's another story. So suddenly I'm sitting there silently and I felt a presence of someone behind me. So I very slowly turned around and there was a woman. I don't know when she came, she just appeared. She was sitting there and she's very friendly. And she said, "May I play you a song?" And I was like, "Sure." I'd love to hear a song. No one ever says a word. Everyone's always silent at this grotto. But this woman comes, she appears. She goes, "I'd love to play you a song." So I said, "Yeah." And I turn back around and she plays the song of Bernadette on her little phone, but it was quite loud. So I'm sitting there and I felt like I was dissolving. I felt like a child. I was just crying and weeping with joy and feeling the presence, just the presence of love and peace. And I was just so grateful. And I couldn't stop crying. And then the music stops and I slowly look at this woman and she's like, so happy. And I just thanked her so much. It was a beautiful, beautiful moment. And then she said, "Well, may I approach you?" And I'm like, "Oh, actually, wait." First she said, "I have something to tell you." She said, "I just came from seeing her." And I'm like, "Seeing who?" I mean, that's what I'm thinking. I didn't say a word because I was like in awe. And she goes, "I just came from seeing her." I went, so I was silent and she kept talking and she said, "I just came from Nevers, France. I just came from seeing her. May I give you a gift?" So although everyone, was keeping this protocol of 6 feet away and all that, it didn't even cross my mind. I said, "Sure, yes, please." So she comes up to me and she hands me a little book of Bernadette. And she goes, "This is for you. It's from Nevers. And I'm guided to give this to you." And like this, I was just looking at her and crying. And just feeling so grateful. So grateful. I've been to Lourdes, France, where the healing waters are, but I've never been to Nevers. And I've always wanted to go. And actually, it was interesting because Bernadette's form, the symbol of her is in a crystal box that everyone can see. And that morning I had found the crystal egg. I have the egg and that little book on one of your books, David, behind me. So then I was just sitting there, just feeling all this love and all this peace. And as I wrote to you, I don't remember who left the grotto first. I have no recollection of what happened next, none. I don't know how long I was there. I have no memory of that, except that I remember walking back up the hill and the sun was shining. I've taken lots of photos of the sun from there. And just feeling so in love, so guided, knowing that I could really, really trust God. I mean, that was it. I felt this union of God. And for me, it was like, thank you, God, because that is my song. That is my song of prayer. To know you, to trust you, and to know that guidance. To know your presence.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Susan. Thank you. And just like when I read the Song of Prayer, and the one line that I remember from the Song of Prayer of the whole booklet is, "The secret of true prayer is to forget the things you think you need." From your parable now, I will just go forth in my day smiling just from the name of the town that you told me. Because Jesus tells us that the atonement, which is the sole responsibility, the atonement is the awareness that the separation never happened. And the name of the town in your parable is Nevers. if I ever have to live in any town, that's where I'm living every day. I'm in Nevers.
Never.
Next time somebody says, what town do you live in Mexico? I'm going to say Nevers. That's now become my adopted town, Nevers. It's got to be the
Neverland.
best. Neverland, right. That's it.
Yeah, even reading that line in your question got me into this place, because I didn't know that was an actual place. Just, I'm coming from Nevers. And I was like, wow.
And she kept saying it, and I'm just staring at her. Nevers, Nevers, Nevers. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
And it was crazy. It was great.
Yeah. That's beautiful. Those are some of the most mystical moments that we have. I'm so glad you shared that. I remember there's a famous singer who writes to me on and off, Christian Linder, I think, and there's a very mystical song, a music video.
Let it go. No.
No, it's but the lyrics are nothing. He says nothing ever,
Right.
nothing. You know, it's just very. Every time I see that music video, I'm just totally gone from the world. But the lyrics are very much in line with that. You know, that's the chorus. He says nothing, 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 nothing ever. That's the chorus. So this is what I mean by, for us, you know, this is not some kind of this is not a performance. This is not a real ministry. This is not, you know, we don't live as if we're living in the dream. Because as you go deeper and deeper into forgiveness, you start to realize experientially this experience of dreaming. It's like more and more, it just gets stronger and stronger about this dreamer of the dream. We've done retreats on that. You know, I'll be talking to Ken, he's like, oh, he gets all excited. I'm all excited about the dreamer of the dream, because that's the quality of what forgiveness is. There's actually a point in A Course in Miracles, because many teachers talk about the Course in Miracles is about forgiveness. Say it's all about Jesus teaching forgiveness. And there's actually one point in A Course in Miracles where Jesus says that the function of God's teachers is awareness of dreaming. He comes right out. He talks about forgiveness is your function. That's one of our lessons. Forgiveness offers everything I want, you know, and this and this. And then he says the function of God's teachers is awareness of dreaming. So our message really is like, relax. Don't put so much pressure on yourself. A lot of times the questions, like Bernd, you were writing, and we were talking about your question, Bernd, because you had that powerful experience when you were over in Mallorca, at the center in Mallorca, where you kind of came in the presence of Jesus, and then you noticed you were afraid of that. And then you started, the next step, you said, well, I'm afraid of the light. I'm actually afraid of the light. Well, that's important to come to that awareness, because then you even become a little more humble and just a little more open when you start to realize that you're afraid of that light. But Frances and I were talking about you this morning before we sat down here, and because we were saying, we just love your sincerity, we feel your willingness, and we also know from our experiences that no one can go beyond their level of readiness. So it was almost like when you were reading through the question that Bernd wrote in, you were saying you felt it was a little bit like he was trying to kind of figure out what, kind of like Jonas, what am I not doing?
Very hard on yourself.
Hard on yourself.
Wanting to just second guessing the motive. Even I know that you are working on projects as inspired and as guided, but before long, the ego comes in to question your motive of doing anything and saying, what if this is from the motive of self-improvement, and what if this is from the motive of wanting to attach to a form outcome? Like, it's like what David was saying, the ego wants to join the party along the way all the time. But actually, I read something recently. Jesus said the ego, it's intense for the ego because the ego wants to join, but he's not part of the party. It's you and I. And he's not really invited, so that's why the ego is like kicking and screaming and want every chance to make you feel that you're not all powerful or strong, and you can subject to errors over and over again, and you have no power over the ego. That's his own voice. Yeah.
So anyway, we're just speaking to you from the spirit, like. When I see you, Bernd, I feel you have such huge sincerity. I've communicated with you over the years, even when you've gone through these expansions in awareness and expansions of mind, and then you've openly communicated to your girlfriend, and then you've just been so willing to accept whatever happens when you do that. I see that as a huge sign of your willingness. I see that when you came there and you were working on the website very patiently there in Spain, you're just letting the Spirit use your skills in web building and webmastering for the greater good. And for those of you that don't know, Bernd is working on this. He's making a movie. He's making a Course in Miracles movie, and he already went and filmed Michael Stillwater, and he was planning to interview Frances and I as well. We're still open to that if airports open up and airplanes begin flying again and so on and so forth. But here you are with all your sincere devotion, letting your skills, abilities take you and to work on collaborative projects for the whole sonship, for the whole universe, and following your passion, expanding. I always think of you as one of the ones who's so willing to keep expanding, and then when you are joining us now and you're writing in your question, it's that ego in there that's going, oh, Bernd, you're just using the movie making, you're using all these things to defend against the light. And the Holy Spirit's like saying, no, he's not. he's using it for me. He's not defending against the light. And also, you have to learn to be content with your readiness, because I think a lot of people who are writing into us are like saying, please, there has to be a way where I can increase my readiness. Like I'm willing, but I must not be ready for the light because I'm too afraid of the light. You should never feel like you have to somehow evaluate readiness, because readiness is something that everybody's trying to put it into time and space terms, like, okay, I'm willing, but maybe I'm not ready, but what can I do? They think if I'm not ready, that must be a defective thing. I must be defective. If I go back to Jesus for an example, using a symbol of reincarnation, Jesus had reincarnations, we'll say, from that metaphor, or bestowals, where he seemed to go through this incarnation thing. These are just concepts. It's kind of like just switching the channels. But he went through that, and then when it was time for him to completely transcend time and space, we have this bestowal that happened 2,000 years ago, where he just transcended the ego entirely. Be of good cheer, I have overcome the world. There it was. I and the Father are one. Before Abraham was, I am. Hallelujah. Touchdown. For humankind. Humankind is dark, dark, dark for centuries, millennial, dark, 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 dark. Touchdown. we've got a score there. I amness has realized itself, and that's great for all of us. But Jesus, if he was thinking during his lifetime, am I ready? Am I ready for the light? There's no resurrection if he gets caught into the am I ready question. You imagine Jesus starting to doubt, going to 40 days in the desert. Am I really ready to do this ascension thing? This whatever this thing is, it hadn't been done, we'll say, before that, metaphorically. So I just feel like the ego is trying to, in a very sneaky way, it's trying to question and doubt your sincerity. And I can tell you, the Holy Spirit, we love your sincerity. We feel like you're going with your readiness and you're giving it your all to be of service. And that's what will wash away the fear and the doubt and the resistance. Your comfort zone, your ego comfort zone is getting stretched all the time. In your relationships, it's getting stretched. In you doing this film, A Course in Miracles film, that's a project for sure, and it's stretching you out of your past comfort zone. So I think that's what we want to really say. Just like I said to Jonas yesterday, and like I was saying to a couple of different people, I really feel like we're here to cheer you on and to say thank you for your steps of willingness that you're taking, because they are truly blessings for all of us, and we feel it. We hope to be able to be filmed and recorded by you, whenever that is going to be. We have to leave that to the Holy Spirit. But thank you. I'm also feeling like, who was it you were talking to recently? Krista?
Yes.
Krista, this is your first time on with all of us, and I saw you the other day. I saw your hand, there it is again. And I think one of the most important things that you can do is when you show up here and you speak to us and to all of us, that kind of is like an icebreaker, because and I feel like we were talking about you because Frances said she's done some counseling call. We were feeling that we would really like to hear from you today, just as a way of having you relax and open up, and it's always that little hump to go over the hump.
Okay. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, I'm really nervous. I found the course like a few months ago, and since that okay, concentrate. I fell in a really deep depression, that like over and over and over again, and 1.5 years ago it was really, really, really deep and dark, and now I'm at home without a job, and somehow the course came into my life, and the first few days I was really, really excited, and I met someone a few houses away from here who did the course also, so I was really surprised. And I'm not even sure what happened, how it all went, because I'm forgetting so soon. What I would like to share is I did 5 days of lessons, and something in me is really excited, and something in me is really, really, really scared. So that is why I am on lesson 30 now in like 6 months. But after lesson 5, I had a moment that I walked down from the supermarket. I walked home, And suddenly it was like I was looking at houses and streets and cars, and suddenly it was like I looked at a painting or something, just like I was in a children's playground, or nothing was real. It was all no, I really can't explain it. And there was a sudden there was a moment when, and I really don't know if that's my thinking or whatever it is, but I suddenly saw that God is not far, far, far away beyond the stars, beyond the clouds, but also not even the most tiniest spot possible. And I can't explain it, I can't give words to it, but it was a flash, like everything stopped. It's really amazing. So I'm turning very red, I think. I'm really excited, but so now my life is like getting up in the morning, and then I hit like a wall of fear, and I it's like I have to move on to even survive. Walk my dogs, feed myself. And I think I'm for months or even weeks, I'm only looking at your videos and reading the course or not reading it is like there's nothing else is going on in my life besides sleeping, eating, walking the dogs, and being busy with the course. And so then I think it's like 2 weeks ago, and I thought, wow, I have nothing. I do not dare to speak up to anyone. So I googled Frances, and I saw, wow, I can really send you an email. You're really a person on the same earth as where I seem to be walking. And so I wrote her a message. I wrote like, wow, I want to get everything out, but I don't know to who. So I wrote Frances, and I wrote her, can I send you a really long email and just get everything out that's on my mind? And she said, yeah, sure. And I was so surprised. So I think I wrote back to you, wow, are you really on this planet, or something like that? And then a few days later, I suddenly wrote, wow, is it even possible yet in your schedule to have maybe a Skype meeting? And you said, yeah, sure. It was so well, overwhelming. I feel like there's some things happening that I don't know how to describe. It's some kind of another chance, another doorway, another. And I have to keep reminding myself I'm not the one who has to do this, who has to push myself. It's okay to rest. It's okay to give myself over, although I don't know how to yet. It's really exciting. And I have to say, this weekend, the fear level was so high sometimes that I just think, wow, where's this going? But somewhere deep down, it feels like, yes, this is the only way. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Krista. That's so beautiful. That's just that. To me, that encapsulates everything. That just with your willingness and to reach out, and then to to speak up here and to participate with us. That says so much in the face of the fears and the doubts. But also that you've just lost your job, that you can start to see, wow, I have time here on my hand. And I think Elizabeth Gilbert wrote was it a famous Eat, Pray, Love? Yours is Eat, Sleep, Walk the Dogs, and Course in Miracles. So maybe that will be a long title of a movie someday if you write it all down. In the theaters near you. Eat, Sleep, Walk the Dogs, and Wake Up with a Course in Miracles. So, thank you, Krista.
Yeah. Thank you. I really see with you and our friend in India who spoke at the beginning about when the group just finished the Song of Prayer study, then this retreat came in. I'd love to see that, once we just hold in our heart what is important, then the way shows up to us. It's like one step at a time. When we talked, and I really had this retreat strong in mind, so I invited you, and you're like, I don't know anybody. Holland, which I know there were hundreds of Course in Miracles friends in Holland, but you don't know anybody, and you come onto the retreat, you say, is there any expectations? No, there is no expectations. You can just show up. You don't even have to do anything. But this is just the spirit, you don't have to do anything. And you just say yes. I'll give you the steps. I'll give you everything. And I just love that. The simplicity and the flow of our prayers being answered. The answer just flows to us. Like what you said, rains on us. Yeah.
It just comes raining down. Because I think that most of the questions and struggles that I hear when people are writing into me and everything is that it's back to what I was saying. If you're still in the egoic mode of problem solving, which is that you have to define the problem first, that's not the way this awakening goes. Because Jesus says that it's in Lesson 135, you can't know the problem that the plan was meant to solve. Some of you enjoy watching movies like I do over the years, and some of you might remember Harrison Ford starring in those Raiders of the Lost Ark and Indiana Jones in the Temple of Doom and those things. And there's the one movie where Sean Connery plays his father. And his father, at some point in the movie, he's been injured and he's very ill. And so Indiana Jones has to leave his father's side because he has to go on this journey to help save the day for his father and for everyone. And basically he comes out and it's this big canyon, deep canyon, and he's got to go across to the other side, and he needs to step out in faith. He's basically given instructions. You have to take the first step. So he comes out and he looks, and it's just this huge canyon, a big drop off, thousands of feet down, and there's no bridge. He looks and he can see the on the other side. There's the cave where he's supposed to continue walking. But he's got his instructions, which is basically he has to take that step of faith, that leap of faith. And everything that he knows from the world and everything that the past has taught him is telling him, you take that step and you will fall to your death. And yet he's got this instructions that no, now this is the leap of faith. You have to take the step first. Now, to the world would say, and the ego would say, and the past learning would say, don't take that step, because if you take that step, you will fall to your death. And yet, he had to trust beyond his five senses to take that step. So it looks like he is stepping out into air. You can see his leg go out, and he's got his eyes closed, and he opens them, and he steps out into what seems to be just air, and his foot lands onto something solid, but invisible to his perception. So he took the step, like Krista, you took the step of writing that long email to Frances, first asking her if you could do it, then doing it, and then you actually had a call with her, and you took those steps not even knowing if Frances was actually a real character on the planet, or whether she just somehow appeared on your screen. It's like, well, we'll see if she's there or not. And Indiana Jones has to step out into what seems to be air in a very steep canyon, and his foot lands on something solid. He still can't see it. And then he takes the next step, and the next step, and it looks in the movie as if he's walking on air. It's one thing to walk on water, but walk on air, I mean, that's even a step beyond what Jesus was doing. Walk on air. So he takes these steps all the way across this canyon on what seems to be air, like he's walking on air. When he gets to the other side, he shifts his head, and because of his perspective shifting, he can actually see the way that the rocks were and everything. It was an optical illusion that there wasn't anything there, but there actually was something there. It just wasn't visible to him. As soon as his perception shifts ever so slightly, he can actually see a faint bridge, a bridge across there, which he could not see before. And then he throws pebbles across it for the next person that comes, so that the next person that comes will see the pebbles. That's all I've done in my life. That's all we're doing. We've taken so many leaps of faith that went against everything that we knew from the past. I mean, I grew up as a Christian, so I learned about Jesus, but as far as Jesus being a living presence in my life, that seemed to be a whole other thing entirely. As far as Jesus speaking to me, like in conversational terms, like a little bird on my shoulder telling me, do this, go call so-and-so, go visit so-and-so, giving me instructions, that was not something I was raised with in Christianity. You could pray to God, but my parents never said, and Jesus will talk to you in very conversational terms. He'll guide you all through your life. Don't listen to us, listen to Jesus. Don't worry about your education, don't worry about having a relationship or getting married or giving us grandchildren or don't worry about anything. Just listen to Jesus. He'll talk to you very directly and he'll tell you everything that you need to know. No, they didn't teach that in Sunday school either. It's like that could have been helpful. I probably would have been really. But what we've done is we've simply followed the guidance. And how has it worked out? It's worked out spectacularly, because even though our lives are not ordinary or normal or average by any sense of the word, we don't even know what's going to happen to everything. We didn't even know we'd be able to be here with you, because the power was out this morning. I thought I might be sitting listening to the birds all day. I have no idea. But even this cluelessness is a great gift from God, because you don't need to know what's in the script. You don't need to know about the future. You don't have any cares, you have no worries, you have no concerns, you have no doubts. These are all, peace of mind is no small gift. But we've basically just followed the guidance, and we've stepped out where we weren't sure if there was anything there. We couldn't see the bridge. When Frances went through a divorce, and she sold her business, and she sold her houses, and she let go of all the things that her mother probably would say were all your safety status symbols that will make you have a good life. When Frances basically chucked them all, she was doing like Indiana Jones. She was just stepping out to be used by the Spirit, and she really was trusting Jesus and trusting the Spirit in a big way. In fact, you've said before that it didn't seem like it was such a big deal when it was happening, because you felt so guided and you were just following the guidance So it wasn't blind faith. You were actually feeling the guidance. And I think that's just a witness for everybody. You can trust your heart, and as you clear your mind away, you know, just like Bernd, your willingness, Frances had a lot of willingness, and you also just kept pace with your readiness. I think you didn't try to do something that you weren't ready for. You were actually ready to let go of some of those constructs and symbols.
Yeah. And we do want to trust that we have access to that. We know when the guidance come at us, we know that. You know, it's kind of, sometimes the ego want to tell us, no, you're so lost, you don't know what is guidance. No, you have a feeling, you know it. You know what feels expansive, what feels right, what feels in accordance with the most integrous desire of your heart. You know that step when it comes, and it's just a matter of saying yes and try it out. And that is exactly, I feel like that's almost like the theme. Don't compromise what you know is your calling and play a role that isn't really good enough for you. This world, a role in this world is not good enough for us because we're bigger than a role in this world. So we have to allow ourselves to go toward that one step at a time, and be very humble as well to say, I can't really just leap from here to the center of the universe in realization or experience, but we do go one step at a time, like a turtle, but very solid and steady, you know. Yeah.
Yeah, I think if some of you watched that movie, the Samadhi movie yesterday, and then afterwards you felt very relaxed and very comfortable, and then you just tuned into your heart, and you said, yeah, well, I'm not ready for Samadhi. It's like Bernd going inside going, I'm not just going to jump into that light. I'm actually afraid of that light. But the roles that you had in the past, like we were talking, in fact, with Seema, you know, I was saying that yesterday. I was saying, Seema, you've played the role of the mother. You really did play that one. Bravo. I think Academy Award. You did a very good job, Seema, as the mother. Really good, dutiful daughter, too, to your Indian parents in New York. You know, you've done the dutiful daughter. You've actually been the mother, and hats off to the doctor role too, Dr. Seema. It's bravo. You know, it's like we're just giving you an ovation. You played those roles so beautifully, and you did it so well. And now there's some more roles that are coming, that are taking you towards the Samadhi. And all you can do now is welcome those roles. I can tell you're ready for it too. I can tell that there's a part of you that's like, yeah, okay, thank you. I'm glad to know I got an ovation for those other roles. Sometimes they were hard, but you were like Meryl Streep. You know, you aced it. You just aced those roles. You maximize them, and now there are roles that will come that you still will be able to relate to as roles. You know, it's not like Jesus says in the Course, don't be afraid that you'll get hurled into reality. Jesus even says you will not be hurled into reality. You're not going to be like Seema going, I just am absorbed in oneness. You actually, there's some roles still coming, but isn't that fun? That's like Greg talked about. That's the adventure of accepting the new roles that come. And accepting the adventure of that. So that's where your peace of mind comes in. You know, it's like when Frances was transitioning from a lot of these roles, you know, business owner and wife and daughter and all these different educated and all these different things, some of the same things you've gone through. she wasn't giving her mind over to the fear of, oh my God, I'm just going to step into the abyss now. You know, I at least before they were familiar roles and I could play them, but now, you know, she wasn't thinking it was an abyss. She was just thinking, oh, it's like an adventure and it's time. Like, that's the most important thing. She could feel like now is the time. Underneath that now is the time feeling was more, Spirit will give it to me. Spirit will show the way. Spirit's going to make it obvious for me what roles I will step into. That's the way the Holy Spirit works. The Holy Spirit exchanges roles, where it helps us go into more expanded states of mind, and yet we're not the ones individually or personally that are choosing the roles. And maybe it never seemed that way for you. I know you said when you were just a little girl, your whole family kind of gathered around you and they were like, we've got a doctor among us in our Indian family. See, now, over in America, you know, we just don't have those kind of scenes, but this is India, you know, this is mystic India. That it's like a prophecy. We have a doctor, she has arrived, you know, and then dutifully you grow up, you play the dutiful daughter, you honor the traditions, you honor thy mother and father, and you honor everything, and you go through and you did it well. You played that doctor role really well. Then you did the life coach, and now metaphysical life coach. You know, you can see how the Spirit's been bringing in more expansive roles, and you can welcome them. And I think all of us, it's a good example for all of us that's the way it goes. So even with Krista there in your room, you know, you're home, you just lost your job, but Seema's here to show you that it's wonderful. It's wonderful the way it goes. You may have fear right now, but there's a wonderful plan that is going to unfold, and you're part of it. So that's really beautiful. Thank you, Seema. Well, Eric, do we have any hands up? There's so many questions that have come in, but actually we love these live interactions. Maybe we should just check and see if there are some digital hands up, or if you something moves your heart, just wave your hand and catch Eric's eye.
Yes, we have someone, I think, who's brand new, named Hina or Hina. Go ahead if you're ready.
Thank you, Eric. I'm so overwhelmed. I don't know what to speak. Yesterday also I wanted to raise my hand and say about a few things, like we have been studying A Course in Miracles past almost 2 years with Dr. Deval, Nishank and Anil. And past 2 years have been a life-changing experience for me. I did my life coaching. I'm a certified financial planner, and I did my holistic life coaching. And 2 months or 3 months back, me and my friend Nirjari, who is also here, we just met and we were just discussing about, because we have been listening to David Yu since last almost 1 year, and we were so excited, and we read about the book Quantum Forgiveness and the Moviegoers website. And we thought that it's a beautiful way to spread the work, and how can we start this? And then, nothing happened. But all of a sudden, Corona came, and we started thinking about it. And we started reading and watching movie just as per the book. We studied the book completely, and then we thought we will launch this in our Indian family, spiritual family, and let's see what happened. But we were past, I think 15 days, we were evaluating our readiness. That we are not ready. Let's do something more. But yesterday, I felt this is a call when the guidance has already come. We were guided to launch this movie club to spread the work, to spread quantum forgiveness, to spread A Course in Miracles. There'll be a way, and we will definitely be able to do this. And we are here in Songs of Prayer, and I'm so happy. I'm so glad. And we seek your blessings. I would ask Nirjari also. Eric, if you could please unmute Nirjari also.
Okay, I'll just check with David. Does that sound good?
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
So Nirjari and me, we both of us are seeking your blessing to, I don't know what to say. I'm speechless. Nirjari, you say.
Yeah, so we are constantly questioning our readiness to do this, to take your work forward here in India, to spread whatever we have gained through your teachings. I continuously keep listening to your videos, and the divine providence is something that I recently experienced just a month back when my son has a particular disorder, and he needs a particular formula to be imported from US, and in the situation of Corona, it was very difficult to get it from US to India, and I completely, at that time only your video of divine providence came into my my awareness, and I let it go. I just completely surrendered that if it has to come, it will come before I need it, and it actually manifested on time. Some manifestation happened, and I'm so much in awe of your teachings, and I really want to spread your work here in India. So we are just looking for some guidance from you.
Beautiful, beautiful. Both of you, thank you for sharing what you did. Actually, yesterday morning when I woke up, I had a rare message from a friend of mine in India, Tirana, and I read her message and I invited her to come on our weekend, Song of Prayer weekend, and she did appear yesterday, and she's been in acting and done some singing and modeling and so forth, and we actually have a pretty good network of people that are down there. Tirana's in Mumbai, my friend Rachana is in Delhi, and then I think there's others that we know that are spread out in different parts of India, but I think that could be part of it, is that you follow your heart and follow your inspirations and work with us, because we love to share it through the movies and the teachings in that way. Maybe we can work out a way where both of you or a group of you could participate with us in some way on our weekly movie gatherings. We're starting next Wednesday. And is work out ways, even if it can be done live or even with a recorded version of it, for the group of you to watch, if the time thing is a bit difficult. And then we'll go forth, but for us it's all about the collaborations. We love the collaborations. We love seeing people take things and go with it. Like Bernd decided to make a Course in Miracles movie, and that's the way that he is going to share these ideas with many people, by making a movie. For yourselves, it can come in the form where you pray and you feel most inspired by it, but we're with you in these collaborations, and I think it's a beautiful thing to use the movies, because those are like the modern day parables. People can relate to those. Actually, before we had the movie yesterday, we had a little meeting of a group of us talking about possible movies, and the actor who starred in Slumdog Millionaire just passed away a few days ago, and he came to me. He was very strong in my mind, and just hearing his name and seeing his face recalled all of these beautiful lessons from Slumdog Millionaire, which teaches us that everything comes to us that we need in the awakening. That was a perfect example of how we don't have to figure out the future. We don't have to get all the means in line to do the function. We just have to have the prayer in our heart, just like with the formula arriving for your son was beautiful, just perfect. Without you just gave it over. You put it on the altar. You maybe watched the Divine Providence video, and then you said, okay, I give it over, and then there it was. The formula showed up. Despite the corona, despite whatever was going on in the world, there it was. It was the answer to prayer. And I feel like that's what we're going to go forward with when we go forward with your project. Now you've got the assurance from inside, the confirmation that, oh, we are ready, and we will join, and we will take these steps now, and it will be so glorious. Everything will show up just absolutely perfectly. So thank you. We're all witnessing this together, that you're launching on this excited journey with sharing the Course and these beautiful movies and these beautiful teachings, and it will be a huge blessing for everybody. Thank you.
Okay, we've just got about 5 minutes left, so let me know if you want some more questions.
Yeah. Oh yeah, please. There's hands up.
Okay, we've got Robert in our co-living community raised his hand, so go ahead, Robert.
Hi, David.
Hi, Robert.
Hi. First and foremost, I wanted to thank you and express a lot of love for the invite. Me being here in Kamas is just wonderful. Really, really grateful. And you know, I'm listening to you talk about cultivating desire and seeing this world in, you know, through loving eyes and stuff. And, you know, it sounds wonderful, but it's confusing to me still. It's, you know, I hear you talk about, I mean, you say that the Course, the world is made in hate, and, you know, don't be fooled by all the good things. I mean, you know, all the flowers and puppy dogs and stuff, they're made in hate and all these things. And then you say that the world is all about love, and I guess, you know, seeing it through loving eyes, you know, I mean, it's all mind, it's all my mind, but, you know, if there's parts about the mind that I'm tempted to judge as being unworthy or something, and it's just kind of confusing to me. I don't know where I'm going with this, but maybe you could just, the way I see it is, you know, when you talk about getting that guidance, you know, when you're sliding down the water slide, you know, that would make everything a lot easier. I could just be carried through this world. But, you know, I haven't achieved that yet. I haven't gotten the guidance. I mean, not like that anyway. And so I'm just thinking, you know, maybe I should just, I don't know, maybe just let it all go. I mean, you know, I can admit that I'm pretty clueless about stuff. Right now, at least, I'm fairly carefree. And, you know, it feels like I've been cared for my whole life in some way or another. But, you know, I'm just thinking, maybe I'm just trying to think about this stuff too much. Like when I see something going on in the world, or I think about it, that I'm tempted to judge, you know, I kind of get lost between, okay, now what are the boundaries between metaphysical ghosting, and do I need to be with this experience? And, you know, or am I making it real now? Do I just need to keep keep the light attitude? This isn't real. And I don't know. I mean, I'm just wondering, it feels kind of like I'm stuck in kind of like this egoic, analytical, trying to make sense, you know, what is the mathematical formula of how these metaphysics look in my life. And I was just wondering if you could maybe just give me another way of looking at this. I mean, you've talked this whole session about it. Forgive me if I'm asking you to repeat stuff, but, you know, maybe just, I don't know, just put it in a way that just clicks better with me, or just, you know, whatever insights you have, I appreciate.
Okay, thank you, Robert. Well, first of all, I just want to address too that you I remember you had written to me a number of times, and you were just pouring your heart out, just saying, do you think there's a chance in this lifetime that I will be able to come and live in community? And I was just being prayer. I'd say perhaps, and this, but it was a very gleeful moment when Jesus was like, "Write to Robert, it is time now." And this is what you were saying, this is the only thing left on your bucket list is coming in here. So thank you for saying yes, and thank you for your willingness and your desire and acting upon the calling of your heart. I was so happy to welcome you. And second of all, there's actually a workbook lesson in A Course in Miracles that has the idea in it, only an instant does this world endure. And I have a friend of mine, Elisa Amor, who has this beautiful CD with all these Course workbook lessons that she is this amazing, spectacular voice. But of all the lessons that she's recorded in this album, her name is Elisa Amor, she had recorded this one, "Only an Instant Does This World Endure," and it's got thunder in it, and it's got rain, and if you go to the workbook and you read that lesson, it's one of the most intense workbook lessons in A Course in Miracles, because basically it's saying that this thought, that only an instant does this world endure, is the same thought that says that death and sorrow are the certain lot of all those who come here. It's almost like, I was like, when I was reading that for the first time, death and sorrow are the certain lot, the certain destiny of all those who come here. In other words, everyone who comes to time and space has had a death wish. Maybe they thought they were off for an adventure. Maybe they thought that they could make up an identity apart from God. Maybe they thought they could make something to take the place of divine love and beyond the samadhi experience. But it's also the thought that you can turn, that will take you all the way back to heaven. Because only an instant does this world endure is basically saying that underneath the giant time-space cosmos of millennium, of black holes, of galaxies, of vastness, even to human beings, they would say the cosmos keeps being discovered to be more vast than was known by science, that underneath that entire mask of time and space, I call it the cosmic fig leaf, if you peer under the cosmic fig leaf, you will find two instants. One, Jesus calls the Holy Instant, and He's calling us into that. That's the present moment. And then He has this thing that He calls the Unholy Instant. And that's where the certain lot of all those who come here is death. That all of the roadways of the world lead to death. That's another line from the Course. All of the roadways of the world lead to death. Men have died upon seeing this. So that particular workbook lesson is taking you, and it's just an invitation, and it's calling to your mind, and this, Jesus is like saying, come to me, come toward the Holy Instant. And there's going to be so many emotions that will come to the surface, and it's okay when you are aware of things that seem to be in the world, when you're aware of things that are coming to your awareness and you feel these emotions, maybe some sadness or some anger, maybe you see something that brings up some anger or some sadness, you're to welcome those emotions up, because all you're doing when you welcome those emotions into awareness is you're saying, I'm coming, Jesus. I'm coming down to those 2 instants. 1 instant is the entire world. The entire cosmos exists in a little tiny gap in the mind that's called the unholy instant. So everything that you perceive about this world is all contained in that 1 instant. Just like sometimes people would ask me questions like, how many angels, David, will fit onto the head of a pin? How many angels fit onto the head of a pin? Okay? I said, well, forget about the angels on the pin. What if the whole cosmos was contained in a tiny little gap in your mind, and that gap has already been healed by the Holy Instant? This blazing light that Jesus represents, this blazing light in the mind, has already handled the gap. That's why Jesus says this world was over long ago, because he knows that the entire cosmos and the entire world that he seemed to believe in, too, that's why he's a good way shower, he seemed to believe in that little gap too, and then suddenly, hallelujah, the Holy Spirit showed him the Holy Instant and took him into the Holy Instant, and Jesus realized, oh my gosh, none of it was ever real. The atonement is the awareness that the separation never happened. But while you still believe it, you will feel the emotions of the ego, because while you still have that tiny mad idea and that tiny little gap, it's not really big at all, it's just the tiniest thing. But you're going through lessons of allowing those emotions up so you can be instructed by Jesus to overlook that little gap. And overlook means to forgive it. And not only can you do that, but you have to, it's your destiny. You've got the Holy Spirit with you. You've got the magnificent Holy Spirit who is the correction for that error, and it's already happened, so you're just going towards that light. So just thank you for your willingness, but if you really want to really investigate what I've just talked about, go do your search in Course in Miracles now, and go for the words, only an instant does this world endure. And that will take you diving into that lesson. And then if you're still not relating to it, if you're kind of feeling really like hazy and foggy with it, I would go online and I would get Elisa Amor's, A-L-I-S-A, and her last name's A-M-O-R. Download her album. It's got an infinity sign on the side, like turned to the side. It's the kind of stars and night sky and an infinity sign, and I think it's through every heartbeat, or in every heartbeat, I think is the name of the album. And then listen to that song. I have played that song over and over and over, because that's an intense song. She's bringing in the thunder, she's bringing in the rain, and then you take a journey when you go through that song. Is like going into your mind. I mean, at the beginning of that song, it's almost like her voice is like piercing. This is the thought in which, you start to see that death and sorrow is the certain lot of all who come here. It's like you're in Dante's Inferno. She's like taking you right down to the unholy instant with her song, and then she pulls out. At the end of the song, she's zooming towards the holy instant, toward the angels, because then you're being zoomed into the holy instant to make that decision for eternity. And that's how the song ends. Her voice just merges with the angels as she starts to sing about eternity as the option. She's really giving voice with her powerful voice to eternity. She's taking you right there. And I think for some people this is so pushed out of awareness that none of us who have believed in time and space were aware of the unholy instant and the holy instant. This was not in my Sunday school class. This was not in your atheist upbringing, you weren't being told that the whole cosmos could be boiled down to two instants, and one of them and is over. That only an instant does this world endure. To me, it's one of the most joyful experiences to go through that and come out the other end. And you stay in the glee. As soon as you start to really embrace that holy instant, then you start to feel like you're lifted up into the most glorious state of mind that has always been there. So that's what I'm going to offer you, Robert. You've got your assignment for the day with all your co-living friends there too. Maybe you all could go through that song as a meditation, and I hope it works. Is just for you like it worked for me, because I was in there sweating at the beginning of the song, but oh, it was glorious as I came through. That's what all the mind training's for. Well, our time is it's hard to believe that it's been over 2 hours, which is hard to even believe it.
Yeah.
I think I've been enraptured here with all of you. So, what do you feel? How you feel we're getting winding down here?
Sure, we can we can wind down, and and also just want to thank you for joining us. And also, it seems like we're having like a movie theme coming strongly. Even our Indian friends are hearing the same thing. That feels very joyful. And we're having a movie weekly gathering starting on Wednesday, I think, the coming Wednesday. And and also I think in 3 weeks' time we have another retreat, a weekend retreat like this, but it's gonna be around the documentary movie Take Me Home. So that would be a wonderful time for us to come together as well, especially if you haven't been seeing the movie, because it is a documentary that we did just to showcase that relationships can be used in as a powerful way to heal whatever that is in between us and God. So that is also a beautiful way for us to connect on. Yeah,
some of you who are new may not know that the movie Frances is mentioning, Take Me Home, it's very close to her heart because was it 5 or 6 years ago, she actually had like a premonition, a little bit of a vision that she would make a movie, even though she's not a movie maker, and that she kept asking, how will I know? And when, I'll just tell you, you don't even have to think about it. The movie's already done. Talk about Slumdog Millionaire, and the script is written. Jesus has said, no, the movie's already done, but there'll be a whole film crew that will show up, and everything that you need to make this movie will show up. So actually, aside from it being a very powerful teaching tool, showing the witness of how to use relationships for exposure and for healing, it's also like a miracle in the sense that it just came from listening and following guidance. This is an example, like we were talking, I was mentioning for Seema, that new roles would come in. Frances went from, being a business owner, she had her financial planning business, she was married, she had a couple houses, she had all these things were part of her life, and then when she made the space in her mind and consciousness for whatever else was to come in, literally making a movie was one of those things that came in. Just like for Bernd's making a movie, Bernd's been working on projects. This is how the awakening occurs, where you allow those skills and abilities that you've developed in an egoic sense to be used by the Spirit to unwind your mind from the ego. And that's really why we watch movies. On these Wednesday movies we have coming up, we will pray on a movie. We will ask that the movie be shown and given to us, and then we will share it among our community, our co-living community, and then there's opportunities for anyone really around the world that wants to show up to watch the movie, whether it's in Europe, in that time zone, or it's over here, but also the replay, even if you're in a place where it's a very odd hour for you with your daily schedule, we will have the movie available as well, the whole movie gathering and discussion to be available.
Yeah, I think it is truly like in itself is a way of living that is okay just to tune in, to give your mind over to something so vast and so uplifting, and you do not have to look down to worry about the little things that bog it down. Like, give your mind over. And just yesterday when we were watching that movie, I was talking with David, the guy who read the script, who did the narration, who did the music, who did the editing, who did the picture. Freckles, everything. He did it all. And I'm sure he is not doing it out of work. He did not do it because he has to play a role someone else told him. It's completely by giving your mind over to something else. And this is the calling. And then just allow the things to flow through. And I feel like Take Me Home is done in that way, not just through one person, but a group of people who basically said, let's all do it together and see what skills got channeled, what product got unfolding, and what is going to be healed through that coming together. So that is that. But the movie gathering that we are going to do every week and the retreat here, it's like every single thing that comes our way is completely done with that intention. Let's just completely tune into only the highest, only the most joyful and most inspiring, and then give our life and our time to that, and let whatever unfold in front of our eyes to teach us who we are, to teach us what life truly is and who is behind the veil. We don't need to teach that, we don't need to tell that, but this is what we're inviting you to join us, truly. It's very inspiring.
And some of you, maybe this watching Samadhi together this weekend, that was maybe the first time you've even watched an online movie together. The retreat and the weekly movie gatherings will involve discussion, we will have interactivity, we will do what we've been doing this whole weekend with the movies. For some of you who are really new to it, and you may think, wow, have you done this with other movies? Many movies. We have our website, mwge.org, for the Movie Watcher's Guide to Enlightenment. We've had that for years. We had the booklet that I mentioned, the product, the first product to come out in Australia. But actually, if you just Googled David Hoffmeister movies or David Hoffmeister movie commentary, if you just Google that, you'll see lots of speakers. You'll see, I think, there are even, what was it, like a livingmiraclestv.org. There's actually some sites that have me doing movie commentary where you can go to the site, and I think one of them was like Avalon. I took a George Harrison movie. Remember George Harrison from the Beatles? There was a movie that he did called Living in the Material World, and so I did a whole movie showing and commentary there from Camas, and that's still on the web. There are a number of movies, Solaris I think might be in there and so forth. But if you want to even listen to some of the commentaries, a lot of them are on Spreaker, and I have had over the years there was an elderly couple one time that watched The Matrix with me. I was somewhere traveling and I said, hey, you want to watch a movie together? And they were probably in their mid-70s or something, and they watched The Matrix with me, and the woman with white hair, she said, oh, young man, if you hadn't been here telling me what was going on with that movie, I would have never understood what was going on. I'd have probably turned the movie off. with all that violence in there. And I've had other people tell me with certain Star Trek episodes, different ones, they just said, oh, I would have never picked that. I would have never thought you could find any spiritual meaning or anything redeeming about some of these episodes. And that's the fun of it. You know, we sometimes will watch a movie, a Black Mirror movie, or, you know, it's one of those. You saw one, Nosedive, you said, for the first time.
It's amazing.
And there are amazing episodes, amazing movies that with the Holy Spirit coming through and the commentary, it just takes you off into higher and higher states of mind. I always tell the story when I was in Caracas, Venezuela. I think I was showing the movie Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind with Jim Carrey. And a woman there who'd been studying the Course for 14 years, she sprung into a mystical experience for the first time in her life during my commentary and during the movie, and just had tears just streaming down her face, streaming down her cheeks, and looking at me with these big eyes in Caracas saying, God is real! Oh my God, I experienced God for the first time in my life. That's going to change my practice with the Course in Miracles with that one experience. And so, for us, the reason we're offering these weekly movie gatherings is because we love them so much. It's really, we're doing it all for ourselves. We're doing it in a very selfish, Christish motive. We have a Christish reason for showing these movies every week, because we are feeling lifted up, we are feeling transported, we are having fun, and we want to share our fun and depth and let the wisdom pour through, you know, for ourselves, basically. We're just, it's our mind giving to it what it wants to receive. So that's that. And also why we do these Take Me Home weekends. We'll do one in May, the 22nd to the 24th, and then we actually are going to do a Spanish one. We'll have on Zoom, we'll do it interactive with English and the Espanol back and forth, and that's coming up in May. June 19th. Good, we have all the people here to remind us. We get the right month, the right date. It's a collaborative effort for the clueless ones. But so yeah, that'll be a lot of fun too. And some people may say, well, I don't speak Spanish. Oh, come anyway. You know, we're doing it in English and Spanish. Maybe you learn some new Spanish words in there. You know, maybe you get to feel the passion of the Latin America, and you get to see it from an angle that you never saw it or heard it from. You know, it's really, like Marina's saying, it's all the same thing. It just happens to be a different flavor, a different language here or there, but it's all the same awakening, you know. So just join in. Maybe you learn some Spanish words. Somebody actually followed a lot of my gatherings from all these different countries, you know, in Hungary and Poland and, you know, all the Sweden and the Scandinavian countries and everything, and they said, at first I started to listen in, and I was bothered by all these different languages. Of course, the ego made them all up, so it's not hard to see how you could get bothered by multiplicity. But then she started to say, it was so profound that I went from being bothered to attracted to it, and then she decided, I'm going to learn to speak other languages, not through these programs and apps, but through listening to your gatherings in all of these different translations. So she was like in there going through the internet and searching and listening to all and learning new languages through my commentaries or through what I was sharing at all these gatherings. That sounds like a lot of work for me, but I mean that for her, that was what she was happy doing that. She was learning new languages and learning with a content that was important to her. And Marina sometimes says when I'm talking, she's got her internal translator going, translating it into Spanish just for the fun of it. And we want you to encourage to go on this inward journey just for the fun of it. Don't make it so serious. Don't be so harsh on yourself. Don't berate yourself and berate your resistances and everything. Don't do that. Go for the fun, go for the joy. Do things where you feel very light-hearted, where you feel like it's melted butter pouring into you, that it's so delicious and so soft. And then you'll start to relax about the spiritual journey, and you won't take it serious. In fact, I have a friend, Alan Dalit, at the bottom of his email, what do they call it? His signature on his emails, he says, his is seriousness causes reincarnation. Because the whole problem of time and space is you forgot to laugh. So seriousness causes reincarnation. So if you want to keep playing this out and doing the Groundhog Day thing over and over, then just be serious. And if you really want to have some fun with us and really blast off from these old ideas of time and space and repeating the same unholy instant over and over for years and years and centuries, and I was Cleopatra in the past life, and you were Cleopatra, well, I was Julius Caesar, and that's not fascinating, that's not even fun to pretend that you're different characters and everything, when you're the mind that dreamed all the characters, and you can laugh at all the characters and everything. Even War of the Worlds turns into a comedy when you're the dreamer of the dream. You can even watch Titanic at the very end when Leonardo's lips, his face is a little frosty and his hair's getting a little frosty and he's hanging in there and his lips are turning blue. You can even laugh at that scene if you're the dreamer of the dream. But if you're identified with the character, then those blue lips, your heart, even you're going to need Celine to come in there and tell you your heart goes on, because when Leonardo and those blue lips go under, you're going to be like, oh, damn, what an ending to a love relationship, the blue lips and, but you have to come to the lightness. The best part of the movie for me was when she takes this big diamond, now there's some net worth as the world calls it, and whoops, it just slipped out. Whoops, there goes that multi-million-dollar diamond going down. That's probably one of the most enjoyable scenes in the movie. It depends on who I'm watching with it. I'm sitting next to somebody and somebody is like, damn, don't let that big diamond go down to the bottom of the ocean. It's worthless. In the bottom of the ocean, it was worthless at the top of the ocean too. That's why it's such a great scene when she throws it away, she just, whoops, it just slips out. There goes the inheritance. That's how the world sees it, like, damn, that would have been a great inheritance. And to us, who are letting go of the things of the world, we're just rejoicing that she threw the big diamond, what's it called, Heart of the Ocean? Heart of the Ocean. She threw the heart of the ocean in the ocean. So, okay, well, we love you. Thank you for joining us, and we always look forward to seeing your smiling faces and your waving hands and your hearts, and we send our heart out to your heart. We love you. I love it. Diana, I love your heart, your expanding heart. Beautiful. Love you, love you, love you, love you. Thank you. Thank you, thank you.